Well, good morning, everyone. Welcome to Joe's Hot Takes, where we dive deep into the issues that shape our world today. I'm Joe, and today we're talking about something that affects all of us, the American media. How much of what we see, hear, and read is true? Is there still integrity in journalism? I don't know. Has the news become just another big business? Well, let's break it down. Let's talk about reality. Here's the reality. News outlets are for-profit businesses. They're not nonprofit, they are for profit. They rely on advertising revenue, meaning their primary goal is viewership. Not necessarily the truth, but what brings in viewers. That's what's important. So I did a little Google search because I just wanted to find out, are these media corporations really for profit? Just want to verify because I like to fact check. So here's what I found. Many media entities are controlled by large for-profit corporations who reap revenue from advertising, subscriptions, and sale of copyrighted material. So, give you a little background on me. I'm a retired police officer. I worked in a large, medium to large city in Arizona. And for about 8.5, almost 9 years, I functioned as the public information officer, the PIO. I supervised the unit. So we did media interviews all over the valley. I've been involved in local and national interviews and media. So I do have a pretty good background in media. What I used to do is go around and visit each of the news desks of the networks around uh, the greater Phoenix area. So CBS, which has here in Arizona, Channel 3, Channel 5, ABC, Fox, NBC. But we also have Spanish news stations here. So we were visiting a Spanish news station. And here's what I found out. The Spanish language news station in Arizona reported to me that between their 9 o'clock and 10 o'clock newscasts, these are the evening newscasts between 9 and 10 p.m., their viewership was a larger audience than CBS, ABC, Fox, and NBC combined. Now that proves the power of media influence. So this one station had a bigger viewership than all the other stations combined between 9 p.m. and 10 p.m. That draws a lot of advertisers to your agency because those advertisers are like, hey, look at this. They have a huge viewership during this time. We got to get in on that. This is where we're going to reach. We're going to be in as many households as possible. All right. So, as a PIO and meeting with all of these different news desks and producers and newscasters and reporters, this is what I found. They have a saying that they use, and their saying is, if it bleeds, it leads. So, in other words, a sensationalized story pulls in viewers. So if you turn on your TV and then they have like a little commercial, quick little snippet that comes on that says, um, tune in to the news tonight. Uh, Check out this story, and they have some catchy something that you go, whoa, I want to watch the news tonight, see what that's all about. Well, that's advertising. They're bringing you in. And then you're going to watch this. And here's the thing that we need to think about. It's called the spin factor. And, President Trump once talked about the fake news. He's not completely wrong here. Not entirely. Because the media they're experts at taking the news, or they're taking that information, and you put the spin factor on it and make it a little bit more catchy, a little bit more edgy, a little bit more interesting, and then you're going to bring in viewers. Most news stories are pretty bland, right? It's just, there was a car wreck. Car wrecks happen all the time. There was a homicide. Homicides happen every single day in virtually every city in our country. So we're not shocked by the fact that there was a homicide. What we're shocked about is how it's presented to us, right? If it's sensationalized in the right way, if it bleeds, then it leads, and that's going to be the top of the newscast, and we're all going to want to tune in to see that. So that's how we do that. That's how we get that little spin factor, and that's where this fake news comes in, because it's not entirely the way it happened. They put spins on it. They put, well, apparently, or it seems as though, right? So they're not giving you facts. They're giving you, maybe this is what happened. All right. So watch out for those spins. Watch out for that, truly, those fake news stories. All right. So with my experience as a police PIO, working with these reporters, they would come in and say, we need to do an interview. I say, great, let's do an interview. And we would do a 15-minute long interview on camera. Well, the reality is we're going to do about actually 15 seconds, maybe 20-second hit of that 15-minute interview. So they are going to cherry pick the statements that they want. And they're not necessarily going to be in order. So they're going to take a statement from the beginning of it, of a statement from the end, and then mix it into the middle. And they're going to make it look like what we're saying is much worse, or much more detrimental than what it really is. So those are another trick, is cherry pick those statements, move them around where you need them. There's editing, right? We're going to edit this podcast. So there's editing that happens and things get moved around. And now I can present to you this narrative. Now, as the consumer of this, and we turn on our news and we watch this and we believe it. We say, wow, they're reporting this. This is an actual event that occurred. And so I believe this. Well, true, it is an actual event occurred, but it didn't necessarily occur the way they're portraying it. And it might not have been as exciting or as bloody or as over the top as they want you to think it is. So this is just a way to bring in viewers, right? Right. So no, these are questions. These are questions that I have. So what is going on? Is this just for profit, or are these journalists really out there to provide unbiased information to the American public? I don't know. I don't know. I'm asking that question. So media outlets use selective reporting that'll generate more engagement, and sometimes at the cost of accuracy, right? So do we want to take this story? This story's it's not that good. But this story over here, this is juicy. This has drama, and uh, this has real teeth in it that we can put out there, and people are going to want to hear it. People are going to want to see this. But this other story over here, that's why do you see very few good news stories, right? They'll splatter them into the newscast here and there, a little good news story. I know that one of the world news stations, at the end, they have this segment. It's like the last maybe minute and a half of their newscast, where they'll give you some good news. They'll give you something inspiring. I like that. And those stories, I generally believe. I generally believe that those are true. The way they report those. All right. So, excuse me. So, how does social media play into this role? So, today, many people get their news from Facebook, Twitter, TikTok, where headlines are often misleading or taken completely out of context, right? Right? I know, you read this stuff, you go, there's something here, but I don't know how much of this I believe. So, I'm going to share an experience with you. This happened several years ago when I was still working as a police officer, and I had went to ASU's Cronkite School of Journalism in Arizona here to speak to a group of future journalists. So the way I always started those was I would say, well, hey, how many people in here read a newspaper? You know, guess what? Nobody. Not one of those students raised their hand that said that they read an actual newspaper. So nobody was reading the newspaper. I said, well, where do you get your news? How many of you get your news from, what I would consider a legitimate news source? ABC, CBS, CNN, Fox, whatever. How many of you get your news from a legitimate news source? And a couple hands went up. Not a lot, a couple. I said, well, how many of you use your computer or phone to get your information? Almost all hands go up. Well, where do we find that information? Overwhelmingly, it was social media, Facebook, uh, you know, Twitter, things like that. That's where remember, these are journalist students. These are in journalism. These students said they get most of their information from social media. I said, how much of that do you believe? They said, not much. And then surprisingly, there was a group of students that said, well, we watched the Colbert Report. And I'm like, seriously, you watched the Colbert Report? The Colbert Report is on Comedy Central? It's a comedy show. They're like, yeah, but it's real news. He just makes it funny, so we like watching it that way, but we still get the news. Did I mention these are journalism students? Okay. So that's where we're at today, right? So now we don't know what's real. We don't know what's fake. We don't know what's been tweaked. We don't know what's been cherry picked. We have no idea. All right. So so then we also see now a lot of these opinion-based talk shows, like for example, The View, right? So these hosts are not experts, but they still shape a public opinion, and so they speak what their opinions are. And how many people listen to these opinions and go, hey, yeah, that's right. That's right. That's what I believe too. But they don't even know if the information is factual. Is anybody fact checking? So that's my thing. I'm like, hey, folks, listen to the news, take in what you want. But before you take a hard stance on anything, fact check it. Fact check it and make sure that what you're hearing is actually true. It's interesting. If I turn on CNN and watch 30 minutes of their news and then switch over and watch 30 minutes of Fox News, what do I see? The same stories? Maybe. Some of them might be similar, but the same narrative? Not even close. Totally different narratives, totally different opinions, totally different reporting. So, not saying it's right, not saying it's wrong, not taking a side. I'm just saying be aware of all of this and don't jump on one ship. It's funny. I've had people tell me if you really want to know what's happening in America, watch BBC, watch the British news stations, or watch the Canadian news stations because they don't really care about America and American politics. They're just going to say this happened today, and it's probably going to be fairly accurate. And there's not going to be a lot of commentary or opinions interjected into their newscasts. So you can get some pretty decent reporting that way. But American media, I'm a little worried about it. So back to these talk shows, back to social media, there is this huge danger of misinformation spreading. And we all know this. We all know this. I'm not telling you anything you didn't know. We all know many uninformed individuals are the loudest voices online. They're completely uninformed and they just rant and put all this information out, and they're putting post after post after post after post. And after a while, we start believing it. We're like, wow, they've said this so many times that it's got to be true. Well, let me throw this out at you. Some of you might be Howard Stern fans, some of you might not. Um, but you remember back, this has been a while back, Howard Stern actually sent some of his folks out to do street interviews. And it was great because they would ask people, are you a Democrat or a Republican? Oh, I'm a Democrat. Okay. Um, well, who are you voting for the presidential election? Uh, 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 who's running? Same on the other side. I'm a Republican. Oh, okay. Well, what do you think of? And there was one that was great. They actually said, "Well, what do you think? So you're a Republican? You're voting Republican? Yes. Okay, great. That's awesome. So, what do you think of Hillary Clinton's policies? Oh, I think it's great. I think Hillary Clinton's great. So here we have this contrast of, yeah, I say one thing, but I'm just not informed in any way, shape, or form of this. So there were so many people out there that were completely uninformed. They had no idea who's even running for president at that time. So it was just really interesting. It was kind of a, just this little social experiment that I thought was really interesting because it was raw. It was raw. It was raw. Just walk up to people and ask them, and the information that was coming back was unbelievable. So, so they didn't even know who their candidates were, who some of these people that they talked to about. So anyway, so let's talk about how do we solve this for us, for the consumer, for the person that goes into the media, goes into social media, turns on the TV, however we get our news, however we get our information, what's our solution? And I think fact finding and media awareness is where we start. So how do I be a smarter consumer of news? Well, I think what you have to do is read multiple sources. So I think you have to go back to, let me watch some CNN. Let me watch some Fox. It doesn't matter which side you're on. It doesn't matter. I really, truly doesn't. I'm not here to pick a side. Watch CNN, listen to their reporting, take in the information that they're giving you. Go over to Fox, do the same thing. Now, there's an old saying, right? There's your story, there's my story, and somewhere in the middle is the truth. So we're going to glean from each of these newscasts different information. But get out there and look at multiple sources. Fact check with reputable outlets. Fact check. I got to tell you, uh, I love the fact that I can get on the internet today and in seconds I can fact check in 3, 4, 5 different locations, right? I can find things and go, okay, I think I've got a pretty good idea of what's accurate here now at this point. So, and then be aware of media bias, okay? And I just brought this up a little bit, left leaning versus right leaning, CNN versus Fox, things like that, okay? Be aware of that. And if you have to, maybe you have to separate those out. Push them to the far left, push one to the far right, and jump in the middle and see what's out there. Look at your other major networks. But generally speaking, and again, I'm not here taking sides, but generally speaking, the media seems to lean very much left, very, very liberal. Um, Not saying that it just appears that way. That's the appearance that's out there. So, uh, but like I said, look up news stories, look up CNN, look up Fox News. I love BBC. They're really good. Check out Reuters. Reuters is another one. And are they all telling the same story? Because now you're getting extreme left, extreme right. You're getting British over the pond. What are they saying? You're getting Reuters. What are they all saying? Are they all saying the same thing? And then make an informed decision before you really want to take a stance on something. And really, I want to encourage critical thinking. So before sharing an article and reposting and getting on the soapbox, ask this question of yourself: where did this information come from, and is it credible? Where did I get it, and do I believe it? Right? All right, that's it. I mean, I could ramble all day about this, but I don't want to do that. So here's the thing. The media landscape has changed drastically over the years, but one thing remains the same. We, as consumers, have the power to seek the truth. So don't take everything at face value. Think critically, fact check, and most importantly, stay informed. All right, everybody. Hey, thanks for tuning in. And until next time, stay curious.